Welcome back to Talk Healing to Me, the podcast where we talk all things health, healing, and human. I'm your host, Karen Dwyer, and you know I love people who are doing things differently. And today we've got one of those people. Barry Moore is the founder of Vitality Neuro Rehab, and he's got this beautiful brain-based, body-aware approach to movement. And it really is healing and it's changing lives. And not only that, he's now officially part of the MS to Success crew, working with our clients in both our seated programs and our mastery programs too. He's helping people regain strength, confidence, and function after clearing the fog of neural pathways that weren't firing properly. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here, Karen. Appreciate it.
It's great to be here too. I was over in your beautiful new studio and clinic in the past couple of weeks, and it was so impressive. And I suppose we'll get straight into it. Let's start at the beginning. What led you to founding Vitality Neuro Rehab?
This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your doctor. Views shared are personal and not a substitute for professional guidance.
Long story, but I'll keep it short. I ended up in the States after doing my undergrad here in Dublin, and was working in all kinds of adaptive physical activity, outdoor recreational therapy, and then found my way into a master's program in kinesiology. And through there, I was teaching undergrad students how to program and kind of write exercise prescription, physical activity prescriptions for kids and adults with all kinds of disabilities. And while I was there, I was just like adamant to find like what is it that I want to do, and stumbled upon a clinic that provided physical therapy, exercise, wellness programs for people with neurological diagnoses, injuries, conditions, whatever. And ended up interning there, got a job straight out of college from there, and then they sponsored my visa and all that. So I stayed out in the States. Ended up coming home during COVID, going back out, and by the time I left there, I was their lead exercise specialist and trainer. I took a different job then before coming back to Ireland. Moved out to the West Coast to a small, big town, small city in Oregon called Bend, and worked with a brilliant practitioner out there who really acted as like a mentor to me and kind of taught me a whole different way of thinking about movement coaching and approaching the body. And from there, just kind of opened my eyes to just different ways of approaching neuro rehab and kind of the wellness side and the kind of holistic approach to movement coaching. So I had always wanted to come home to Ireland and just kind of understanding the need for it here. And it was just like there was nowhere really that I could go and apply to a job because I'm not a physio, so I can't go and be do this in a hospital per se or stuff like that. So I was like, I'm just gonna do it myself and see where it takes me. So early doors now, but it's been going well so far.
I love that. It doesn't sound, well, I know it's early doors for Vitality Neuro Rehab, but your work itself has spanned across so many years, in the States already and so much experience. I love hearing that holistic approach. And, you've mentioned hospitals as well. And you'll have heard me speak about, clients who have they've ended up in a hospital with a relapse and they may then have developed some mobility issues. And a lot of the time they're treated as, say, for example, it's drop foot. And it's purely just the foot that is treated without anything else being looked at. And it breaks my heart a little because you're looking at the whole human being and they haven't been seen or heard or supported, or their whole body approach hasn't really been even acknowledged. And so what you're doing and what we're doing at MS to Success, that's why I think this education needs to be in the world more, to have people feel that autonomy and control and be able to identify and deactivate those things that are showing up in the body or whatever those physiological responses are. So I'm so happy that you're part of MS to Success, I have to tell you.
It's great. It's great to be proud of that,
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I have is, what do most people misunderstand about neuro rehab or neurological recovery?
I think, there's so many answers to that, but I think kind of overall, the biggest kind of learning I've had over the past probably year to 2 years is that there's so much you can do for someone and so much you can show somebody that they can be doing themselves multiple times a day. And, a lot of the kind of work that I did initially when I got into this kind of gig was, you need to be here 3-4 days a week. And we really got to hammer home your rehab. But that's not financially viable for a lot of people. It's not like logistically viable. Transport, carers, whatever, and family commitments. So being able to show people small things that they can do where you don't need big fancy equipment, and little things that you can do with your eyes or some sensory input and things like that. They're the things that can give people the kind of autonomy and independence in terms of finding an exercise that is beneficial to their balance. But what can they do with their eyes, their vestibular system, to kind of maximize their ability in that exercise at home? So small things that they can do regularly throughout their week, that they're A, taking ownership, but B, they're not dependent on me or having to come and see me every time they want to move or be active or kind of work on their recovery.
I love that. I really hear one of the interviews that we did a little while back with Hilary Rose, and she spoke about the word sovereignty, and taking that sovereignty back, because a lot of times then we do hand it over to other, especially when somebody's, in a compromised mental, emotional, or physical state. You're looking to these people in the white coats or in the medical system. And by the way, again, I feel like I always say this: they're amazing at their jobs.
Absolutely.
They really are, particularly for acute medicine.
Yeah.
But everyday lifestyle medicine, I think that's where there's a major, major gap between the medical model and everyday life.
Yeah.
And that's why we exist.
Yeah, exactly.
To have people feel that empowerment. And you've worked across conditions like MS and Parkinson's and stroke and also, physical trauma as well. What do you notice in people that really make the breakthroughs?
That's again, it's so people who have these massive recoveries and they're back to almost full function, like back to as close to what they were before their diagnosis or their injury. It's a hard one to comment on, because what is it? Some people come in and they just work so hard and they do their best in so many ways, and they don't make the recoveries that other people do who also are working hard, but maybe didn't even put in the same amount of effort or didn't put in the diagnosis, the injury. They're all just so different. What I would say, the one thing that I see when people are making progress and they're kind of taking that next step in function or pain management or tone and spasticity at the moment, is the kind of consistency of their practice. And that's where the small little nuggets of do this at home 2 or 3 times a day, or before breakfast, lunch, and dinner, do this, or like little things like that. But I think having access to people who can direct you, because it's easy to say just do the small things, but what are those small things? What are the things that are going to work for me as an individual versus this works for everyone? Because it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just trying to find that kind of access to somebody who can direct you and will actually listen to you and hear you, and not give you the cookie cutter plan.
Exactly that. And I think, you mentioned a great point. There are supports available, say, online, YouTube, or things like that people can go and look at. But I think the integration and the support and the cheering and the accountability then of checking in with someone, that is the hard. Like, there's so many people who are compromised from a health or a physical point of view, and there are supports out there. However, if then that is affecting your mental or emotional well-being, it can be hard to stay on track and can be hard to keep that consistency. We definitely have some traits in our most successful clients. When I share them with you,
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
the first one is they have belief that they can improve. I think that's probably the most important one. Like we probably accept about 30, 40 people, 30, 40% of people that we speak to. And we don't work with everyone, because I think it's important that someone really wants the transformation and isn't, I think sometimes people can think when you come to a program like MS to Success, that it's almost like going to a restaurant and you're ordering, give me the results. It's like, and if somebody says to me, what results am I going to get? I'm like, well, you tell me. You tell me how often you're going to show up. Are you going to consistently show up to, when we're asking you to? Are you going to do what we're asking you to do daily? And it's showing up even when you don't want to. And that's really hard. That is really hard. It's what is it that one of our other practitioners said? The program is easy. It's just not simple. Showing up all the time when you really don't want to. And then the other trait is that someone is coachable, that they're willing to maybe look at something a different way, because there's probably been a lifetime of, patterns of maybe doing thing a certain way. And the other one is that they're willing to dedicate themselves. They're actually willing just to put in the reps, even if they don't want to. And those three things, it's incredible when people do it. Like you say, those smaller incremental wins add up to that great big transformation over time. But that's support along the way, because it's very hard doing it by themselves.
And I've seen that too, like with the clinic I worked at originally, we set up wellness programs on the peer mentorship and the peer support, the shared lived experience. Like that's massive for people to kind of go through and even just learn from each other in terms of adaptations and access to resources and all that kind of stuff, because a lot of people are just thrown into their diagnosis or their injury or whatever, and it's a whole new world. I've heard people say, I got told I have X, Y, or Z, and I've never even heard of it before. And now I have to figure out how to live with it and gain access to resources that can help me with this. So having that peer kind of support is massive. Like,
oh, it's huge. I think then people realizing that they're not by themselves.
Yeah.
Because because usually if somebody does have an issue going on like that, they're probably the only one in their family or within their friend group. So showing up to a group where there's other people who recognize and can, associate with what it is, it's a whole other level of confidence and acceptance then as well, possibly. You talked about untapped potential in the body. What does that mean for the average person who feels stuck, would you say?
I think that can come from various different ways. And I see it with people who have a lot of high tone spasticity, where that limits their ability to be functional in any given task. And then when you look at, okay, how can we reduce that tone and make it manageable? What does that then give you the ability to be? It may not be that you have recovered a muscular function, but it may be that the spasticity and tone is not limiting you from doing something now. And it's kind of giving you the access to move more freely, or that the tone and spasticity that was there was kind of covering up some function that you actually did have, some motor function that you did have. So trying to tap into that stuff, from where's the tone coming from, why are we having spasms in this movement and not others, or whatever the case may be in that regard, trying to solve that. And then also things like looking at the brain and looking at the vestibular system, the visual system, the proprioceptive sensory inputs that we can give to people. How does that change their motor output? And again, there's some brilliant people out there doing lots of work in those areas. And that's where I think people can access the breakthroughs and those plateaus that people are always told they're having. And I always take it as my responsibility to figure out a way through the plateau, not to tell someone they have a plateau and to come back to me when they're through their plateau. Because to me, that doesn't make sense. They're not making progress, so we ask someone to come back at a later date when they are making progress. But that's my job, to help you make that progress and get to that plateau. And if what we're doing is not working, it's on me to figure out a new approach, a new direction. And then if it comes to that point and I'm not figuring it out, then it's like, right, I need to find you the person that can help you, because I'm not going to have all the answers for every case. So maybe that's a different movement practitioner. Maybe it's a talk therapist. Maybe it's a functional medicine doctor. Whatever the case may be, who can gatekeep and keep people as our clients or our people. We gotta help them and steer them the best way they need to do that.
Yeah, that's I can really hear your passion and commitment to people inside of what you just said. And it is that, when people come to you in a compromised position, their goals become your goals.
Yeah.
They become our goals at MS to Success, and you have a commitment, and you meet them exactly where they're
Yeah.
at, and bring them along with you. What would you say to, because I'm sure you've heard this a lot as well, that if somebody has been, whether they've been in a car accident or whether they have Parkinson's or MS, a lot of times um, they might be told, whether it's by uh, somebody in a hospital or it might be a family friend or someone else, that's the way things are now. Adapt your home, get ready to start getting worse. What would you say to someone like that who maybe has people around them that are saying it's not possible to improve? I see you taking a big deep breath
I
there.
am, because it's such a tough thing to hear for people. This is it. This is your new life. And I've heard so many people who have told me they were told that, and they're kind of defying the odds, right? But are they defying the odds, or are they the people that just found the right people to guide them on the right path to success and to the purpose? Um, I think if someone's told that, and they're told all the negatives, and they're told you'll never do this, you'll never do that, get ready to never be social again, never be independent, and all that kind of stuff. In some cases, there's some reality to that, and that you may not be as independent as you were, or you may not be the same person, for lack of a better kind of distinction on that, as you were before this injury or before this relapse or whatever.
Mm.
But there's always ways to make progress.
Mm.
I'm rambling. I'm finding myself rambling here.
No, you're not. Don't worry. You're good. Well, do you know what? Here's what I'll say to you
Yeah.
with that. I get you're very kind with your answer around that, and
Mhm.
I get really annoyed.
Yeah.
It annoys the shit out of me when someone says to me, "Oh, well, my brother's a physio and he's told me that I can't do anything,"
Mm.
or the neurologist said to me, "Look, get ready to adapt your home." I'm like, "Are you actually kidding?" I'll give an example. One of our clients, I'll call her D. She's in Canada, and when she came to us first, she was using a cane, and she walked back into her neurologist's office without a cane,
Mm.
and he wouldn't even acknowledge it, like wouldn't say anything. But she was told she'd never be able to do that.
Yeah.
We have clients. It's another Karen who was in one of our seated programs, and she had been a wheelchair user for 8 years, and she was able to climb up and down 13 steps into her basement
Yeah.
and able to stand unaided. Now, she's not walking fully unaided like that, but she's a huge amount more ability to move around and transfer and sit and stand. And that's a whole other level. But again, she was told she'd never be able to do that. So I think there's a part of me that gets annoyed with this kind of godlike confidence
Yeah.
that doctors or some other people give and hand it to people. And it I find it very upsetting, because when somebody's in a vulnerable position like that, sure, what reason have they got not to believe
Yeah.
what that person is saying to
Yeah.
them?
Yeah, that's
And
true.
so when you're trying to then unpack that and have them believe and instill in them, and then get them to do what we're asking them, maybe once or twice a day, and show up every day, you're really going against the mental blocks potentially that are there. So you've really got to work. Well, what we see all the time is, we don't work with anyone for less than 4, ideally 6 months, because we've got to see how and what normal life looks like, and then see where we can maybe remove some of those things, and build new patterns and new confidence, and new possibility instead. That's I think it's almost like, that they say about an airplane that it takes much more fuel at the beginning and for takeoff. I feel like it's that with this part of the work as well. And I feel like at the start of the MS to Success programs, it's it's definitely an upward hill movement to get people really mentally bought in and to really instill that confidence. And I think what you mentioned earlier on, having those peers around you and seeing other people who are further ahead than you, who have already gotten the results that you want, that's the inspiration. Not me or you saying you can do
Yeah.
it. It's other people having walked that path and gone through it already. But you're very gentle and lovely when I ask you that question, whereas I'm
Yeah.
like, it annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is because you meet so many doctors and physios and OTs, and they're brilliant. But I don't think saying to people, this is it now, you're gone. Like, maybe it's like you need to explore other options, because what we can do for you now is prep you and help you adapt your home for your current situation. But yeah, given that kind of passing the baton to someone else, now, like, now it's time for this practitioner or this therapist or this movement coach to look at how you can be more independent.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe that's the way up. We could label it in that it's a continuum. It's a continuum of care, right? You go and you're in your acute care, inpatient, your outpatient rehab, and then it's like, and now what? So you're into the community. What services and um, practitioners are available to you now in this next step in your continuum? And the doctor
Mhm.
can't hold your hand the whole way through. You gotta. My old boss used to say, you gotta own your journey. You gotta take ownership of what you're doing, and that's a big part of it. So we can't put all the blame on people who say this is it, but there needs to be a change in that language and that structure, and like
For sure.
a wider acknowledgement of the continuum of when and how people access services.
Yeah. I think one of the things, though, and you've nailed that. One of the things is most of those people aren't trained in the training, for example, that you have. There's a gap in their training so that there's possibly an unawareness of what's out there.
Maybe.
And then also the thing that I find as well, there's very little time. We have, and most countries have a compromised healthcare system. Most, not all. And so the amount of time that you have sitting there with someone,
Mhm.
it's almost like a conveyor belt,
Yeah.
So it's like if there's a gap in
Yeah.
awareness and then they don't
Yeah.
have the time, you're right. The person, it's each person's responsibility to have
Yeah.
themselves looked
Yeah.
after. And that can be daunting in
Yeah.
itself.
Exactly. It can be,
Yeah.
but that's where finding those programs and things like NS to Success, where you can meet with others who can tell you where to go. You don't have to figure it
Yeah.
out all by yourself every time.
Yeah, brilliant. What would you say to some? I'm asking you all the hard questions,
That's
by the way,
great.
Barry. But here's what I'll always try to do is, okay. So if somebody's listening to this and they're dealing with whatever it might be, what questions might they want to ask? So I'm trying to channel what I think they might ask. So what if somebody thinks maybe somebody's been dealing with drop foot, or maybe somebody's been in a wheelchair for quite a long time, and they think, oh, is it too late for me? Like we have clients, like as you know, up into their 70s, and they'll come with a vitality. But I'll always ask the question, "Am I the oldest?" Or we've had an 86-year-old as our most experienced client. What would you say to someone that does say, "Is it too late for me? Have I waited too long?"
This episode of Talk Healing to Me is sponsored by Clean Boss, created by Joy Mangano, the legendary inventor behind the Miracle Mop and a pioneer in clean innovation. Clean Boss is a botanical disinfectant that kills 99.9% of viruses, germs, and bacteria. It's safe for food surfaces, soft surfaces, and baby high chairs with no toxic ingredients and no rinse required. It's also a degreaser, odor eliminator, and all-purpose cleaner that works as hard as the chemical heavy stuff without the health risks. Check it out at getcleanboss.com/Karen for a clean, better, and living safer life.
You know, I think the simplest answer is to say, like, well, there's one way to find out, like, why sit there and think, oh, I waited too long. Like, give it a go. And I read a quote the other day, and it said, in 6 months, you could have questions of what if, or you could have 6 months of progress, something along those lines. And to me, then it's just like, if you went into someone and said, oh, I think it's too late for me. Too late for what? To improve? Too late to gained some level of improved function. Uh, but I don't think that it's ever too late. I think the possibilities of your recovery may change over time. Because even for me, if I don't do anything for 6 months, if I don't go for a run or go to the gym, I'm gonna go back, or I'm gonna sit like that. And yeah, maybe that limits my potential to become an athlete of whatever kind. But if I don't start now, then where will I be in 6 months or in a year? So why not just start now?
That's beautiful. That's inspiring, isn't it? That'd get anyone's bum moving for sure. What would you say? Like, because obviously there's people with a wide variety of, you might have someone that just feels like they're seated too long. Maybe someone that's working at a desk, or wakes up in the morning and their body feels stiff or achy, and it might be someone with drop foot. What would you say might be, and I know this is a massive sweeping generalized statement, but if there was one movement that people could do daily that would help them, what is there something that you would point to?
One movement, something with rotation, some form of trunk rotation, spiraling movement. Again, I'm going back to
All I'm thinking is gymnastics with that swirly ribbon right now when you say
now.
spiral
I'm,
movement. That's
I'm
where my girly brain went
yeah,
to.
no, I've never actually thought of that one, but no, I'm thinking your shoulder, your ribs, and your hips. Someone who sits a lot, uses a wheelchair a lot, that's shoulder, ribs, and hips, and it's all in the same plane. It's kind of weird in the camera here, but like you're kind of going forward and back. Or
Okay.
as humans, bipedal humans, we're designed to rotate as we walk. Those micro little rotations through your trunk, and the
Yeah.
effects that has on organ health and spine health, all those different things, is huge. And when you sit and then and she use a wheelchair for a lot of your day, and those rotations are very limited. Even for someone who might have care and caregivers or assistants helping them in bed, a lot of the time it's the shoulder and the hip and everything rolls together. We don't get those rotations. And I think that the movement, if I have to pick one to say to everybody, now there's
Yeah, brilliant.
limitations for people who have spinal fusions or hardware or different things going on. And so the usual, like,
Yeah.
check with your doctor or check with your practitioner. But for most people, there's some level of rotation that you can do. And that might even just start with the neck. It, you know, it, it it's a powerful movement to do, especially when you start getting to the nuances of it as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I don't know if you noticed, but I literally changed my posture as you were talking. I realized, oh, you're
Yeah,
you're slouched
yeah,
over there, Karen.
yeah.
Very good. Do you find that people do that when you're around? They kind of change their position or move a little bit
No, do you know what I
differently?
think it is? It's not because it's like, even when I talk about it, I find myself, because it's just you bring your awareness to it and you notice, okay, I'm sitting and I'm slouched, or I'm hunched over. Uh, it's just that you're aware of it all of a sudden, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. Um, I have two more questions for you before we go into our quick fire
Okay.
round. But I'd love to ask you, if someone is feeling stuck or scared, what's the first thing you tell them to do?
Well, the first thing, depending on the situation, if they're stuck or scared, try something.
Mm.
Try it. If it doesn't
Yeah.
work, so what? Be safe. Don't get silly, but try something. And
Yeah.
if it works, great. If it doesn't, maybe you'll pick something up and say that didn't work because, but that will kind of inform your next try or your next silly. And if it only
Yeah.
works
I
a
love
little
that.
bit, great.
Something
Something.
moves,
Yeah.
something happens. Yeah. We get a lot of people that maybe come onto calls with their team or nurses, and they're like, oh no, I've read this book and I've read that book and I'm doing this. And it's like the reading of books, and doing the research, it can be that paralysis by analysis, when you keep looking, and
Absolutely.
then it can almost be
Mm,
overwhelming because there's so much information
absolutely.
out there. And it's almost like having a
And I,
conversation about
and I
politics.
think that's part of it. People really overthink things, and like I've had two people recently one last Friday and one earlier this week. One told me in the couple hours we were working together, he said, "This is the most I've moved my body in 45 years." Now,
45
this was a
years.
man who was born with a congenital condition. And another guy, he was injured about 6, almost 7 years ago, and said, "This is the most I've moved since my injury." And this was 20, 25 minutes into a session. And it's not anything groundbreaking or anything special. It's just simple movements. It's just how you coach it. And it's even down to like, how would you go from there to there? You know? And it's that paralysis by analysis. You're like, I don't know. Do it. Just do it. I mean, it's not right or wrong. It's just do it. And then we'll pick it apart and break it down, make it more efficient for you. And so I think there's a big element of that, the paralysis by analysis. So just figure out a way to move.
Yeah. I almost feel emotional when I think about that, because if you think of somebody, like you mentioned, that man, the most that he's moved in 45 years, you can imagine someone's state of mind and emotions who hasn't, or maybe hasn't had the support or whatever, for whatever reason, and they haven't. You can imagine their train of thought before, say, a session with you or going to that. I'm sure there's all kinds of things like fear
Really?
and worry, and because it's easy to get stuck in our everyday bubble, whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
whether it's healthy for you or not, because it just becomes your normal. And a lot of times people, that fear of change can be greater than staying in that familiar pain. And I feel emotional when I think about someone like that, when there is people like you, when there are programs out there, when there are practitioners who really give a shit and really want to care for the whole human and not just in you go and out you go for a few minutes, Like, Barry, thanks for doing your work. And I'm so glad that you've set up Vitality Neuro Rehab. I've one more question before that quick fire round. And what is your vision for your company, for Vitality Neuro Rehab, over the next 5 years?
Yeah. I have the vision and I have the where I'd love it to be in 5 years or 10 years. I got to see where it takes me and where I can take it. But I'd love a one-stop shop for anyone with a neurological diagnosis to come in and find support. Whether that's, I want to be able to roll over in bed by myself again, I want to walk again, I want to do X, Y, Z, or I just want to be upright for an hour a day. I want to get into a stamina frame, or I want to just be around other people. I want to, just find that spot. And again, I've traveled around the States a lot and a little bit in Australia too. And I've seen the clinics that are out there and the programs that are out there, and they're not all perfect. There's a lot of space for go through a bit with everything. And what they're doing, everything for the people, and it's very holistic, and people are finding great community and social support, and that's just a whole different aspect of health that I can't give to someone over like a movement session. I can't give that to somebody through my coaching. But if we can create a space and an environment where that just kind of naturally comes about, that's the goal, to find that space that people just find healing almost themselves, but with people like myself and hopefully some other practitioners that maybe join me along the way, and with their guidance and kind of support.
I love that. Well, we're going to hold that vision for you as well. Now, I no doubt that it's going to happen, and it's happening as we speak.
Great.
All right, Barry, it's time for the
All
quick
right,
fire
cool.
round. So you're just going to say what comes to you. No pressure. There are 10 quick questions. I see him getting uncomfortable in the chair if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify video. I love it. Okay. First one is, if you followed your childhood dream, what would you be doing now?
I'd be playing for Man United.
You'd be
playing for Man United.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, very
Which
good.
at the moment,
very good. Do you have a favorite player there?
No, I don't at the moment. It's very hard these days. The last few years have been tough.
Okay.
Any football, soccer fans out there will know why I'm struggling to answer that.
Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Oh, bless. Okay. Well, second one, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Take chances. Don't be so calculated. and don't worry so much.
I love that. That's good advice. It's good advice for everyone, even right now. Next question: who inspires you the most?
Ooh, struggling with the quick fire part of this. Who inspires me the most? Um, there's so many different avenues to explore in that. I'm thinking like other professionals. I'm thinking people who've given me kind of insight into what can be done. Um, so I think like I can't really answer that as one person, because there's so many people who've inspired me in different ways. Like my last two bosses, and I'll give them a shout out. I think they deserve it. Like Chris at NeuroHope in Indiana, like he gave me the shot to come in as the intern and develop a wellness program, and then gave me a shot. He sponsored my visa and came out and like introduced me to this world, like this neuro rehab thing, um, and supported me on my journey, like learning into to become a movement professional. Stephanie Kamala with Zebra Fish, like she was massive in terms of like my movement coaching, um, learning, and kind of the whole holistic approach to things. And Caden Stanton with the adaptive movement programs, like brilliant, an amazing mentor, and again opened my eyes and gave me opportunities to explore different areas of active and physical activity and exercise for people with disabilities. And but then there's so many like clients and people that I've worked with that, they come in, they show up. It's kind of the cliche, oh, they inspire me the most, but they really do. Like they come in, they show up, and they have a smile on their face, and they don't let their their disability define them, and we're making the most of their situation. And it's yeah, I'm sure they have their dark days, but don't we all? And yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of people to take inspiration from. So um,
That's a very
yeah,
beautiful answer you just
yeah.
gave.
And I'm sorry if I left anyone out
That's
there,
really
but
nice.
there's a lot of people I've taken inspiration from. Some other practitioners in Germany that I work with, amazing people. Um, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for that lovely answer. Um, this one might be a little bit of a hard one, but then you're good. Then you're going to fly it. Was there a particularly dark day that turned into a positive for you? And if so, what was the lesson?
Um, dark day that turned into a lesson. Not necessarily a dark day, but there's periods there where you're kind of thinking like, what am I doing? What am I trying to achieve here? What am I as someone who just loved exercise and loved sports and loved helping people up? What am I gonna do with my degree or my training or whatever? And then find them uh, a path into this world, and exploring how not having a defined path, because I thought about going and being a physio so much, um, and applied for it and got accepted, and then said, I'm not, I'm gonna go back to the States and see how that takes me. And it's kind of like this path of like, yeah, what am I gonna do? But then like just kind of trusting the process and seeing line it takes you. Um, so I'd say like I didn't necessarily have that dark day and it was a big lesson. It's more like where I was really struggling to figure out my path is like just trust the process and stay curious and keep looking at different opportunities and seeing what's out there, and take a chance and email that person or call that person and see what happens. Um and I think that's where my path has been, I would say, unique, in that I've just kind of been all over and tried different things, and it's led me into this area. And I'm helping people now in Ireland, which is refill. You know.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it is, when you are getting curious and going inward like that, oh my goodness, it's scary, isn't it? It's so scary. So good on you. Good on you. And what does your ideal day consist of?
Ideal day, getting up early, um, and going for a run or going to the gym or just doing something active. Um, is this a work day or a weekend or what? But
Well, let's say
yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
Let's go weekend.
weekend. And you know, recently I went hiking in the Dublin Mountains, and it was such a brilliant day. And it was, we got up early, went up the mountains, hiked, came down, and went and got some food and in a pub that was local, and then came back out and just hung out. You know, nothing special, nothing fancy, but just kind of good quality moments with the people that matter most to me. So, um,
It's hard to being out in nature,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, and I think I'm kind of appreciating that more and more nowadays. You know, and it's just like, yeah, you don't need anything big or fancy. It's just like good quality time with the people that matter most. You
Yeah, I love it.
know?
I love it. Great answer. Alrighty, this is quite an Irish question. If you had a roast dinner,
Mm-hmm.
right? Say it's roasties,
Yeah,
carrots, whatever, a meat, or if you
yeah.
don't eat meat, another protein. Do you eat your favorite thing last, your favorite thing first, or a little bit of everything together?
A little bit of everything together, but definitely saving the last bite for the thing I want. Yeah,
Yeah, same answer. Okay, very good.
yeah.
Very good. Alrighty, we've got another couple left. If you had to choose 3 people to join you for dinner, whether they're past or alive, who would they be?
Roy Keane. Um, ooh, I don't know. Roy Keane. I'm gonna give you 2 more names. Then I'm like, no, I should have picked this person. Kevin Hart. Just think
Nice.
he's hilarious. Trying to decide. Probably going with Dermot Kennedy.
He's sound,
Yeah,
isn't he?
he's cool.
Oh, very
Yeah.
good. I could say, oh, I'd like to be at that dinner. You may have answered a little bit of the next question. We've 3 more. What is your favorite song?
Favorite song. That changes all the time. When I'm in a different mood, it's this song. Do love Dermot Kennedy. I love a lot of Irish bands, a lot of Irish artists. Um, I think Power Over Me by Dermot Kennedy's up there. I love the Coronas as well. Coronas are brilliant. Um, they have a good song
Nice.
called Strive. I like that one. And
Oh, you did. You gave
I've
us.
been digging Pink Pony Club lately.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
so
that's a good
good,
one.
isn't it?
Yeah,
And it's such an earworm as
yeah,
well.
can't like, yeah, that's a good.
I
That's a good
love
one.
it. Okay, good. Second last question. What book do you like to, or do you love to gift the most?
The one I'd probably have gifted the most is Breath by James Nestor. I thought that was a really cool book. Just lots of
Very
cool
cool.
food and stuff. I'm not really much of a fictional reader,
Mm.
and by that I mean I'm not at all. Like it'll take me so long to read it, so like I'll just watch the movie, and I know that'll irk a lot of people. Um, but yeah, no, I'm not really a fictional guy, so it'll be something like quick and practical, like Breath. And I had a friend who
Nice.
has a diagnosis that was like really helpful for him with stuff. So it was cool to see like just the little things in that book that helped him.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
lovely. Lovely, lovely. Last question. How do you switch off?
How do I switch off? I really enjoy just going out for walks or runs. Um, and then also just like a movie or yeah, I'll admit on a Netflix binger, and I'll drag out like multiple episodes in a night. Um, yeah, like just chilling out at home on the couch or getting out for a walk or a run.
Sounds
Yeah.
blissful.
I
Sounds
live
blissful. Well,
by the
Barry,
beach too, so getting down there is it's great.
oh, I
Yeah.
mean, you can't get much better than
No.
that, can you? Ireland,
Yeah.
beach, runs,
Yeah.
walks, nature. I mean,
Yeah.
that's vision board stuff
Yeah.
for a lot of
Yeah.
people. So good for you. Good for you. Well, listen, that was absolute gold. And thank you for being
Yeah. Thank
here
you.
and for your generous spirit and everything that you bring to our MS to Success clients. What you do really goes far beyond rehab, and it's helping people believe what's possible again. And for anyone who's listening and wants to learn more, you can go to vitalityneurorehab.ie for Barry's specific programs. And of course, then if it's multiple sclerosis and you're looking for an overall program, it's ms2success.com. And if you're in the program, keep going. The pathway's open and the strength is on the other side. Barry, thank you again.
Thanks for
I have
having me.
loved
Yeah.
having this
me
conversation
too.
with you. We'll chat to you again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, bye for now.
Thank you to our sponsors of this episode. You can visit getcleanboss.com/Karen. And also a thank you to our video and podcast producer and editor, Aoife McNamara at Imagine Media. Thank you.